So, are UFO contactees' brains different from other people? This is fascinating. Get in here. This is Cosmic Road, where I discuss UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and as I'm going through this, please comment below and let me know what you think. Okay, one of my favorite people to have come out recently to have been talking about this is Dr. Garry Nolan. He's given a whole series of interviews, and they're all fascinating. Recently, he has been talking about how the structure of UFO and anomalous event contactees and experiencers, their brains are different. I don't know if that's all of them. I doubt it's all of them, but at least some of them, their brains are different. They have a part of their brain that I can't pronounce that is actually different than other people. So I'm going to go to an interview that he just gave with Whitley Strieber where he's talking about this. It's a bit of a long segment, so he will go into detail about it. So be patient, bear with me. This is, several minutes long, and, he gives this full, explanation. So without further ado, let's go to the interview with Whitley.
I would say that the bulk of the cases we were able to pass them over to the government agencies who were dealing with the Havana syndrome, which for me is, part of the scientific process, which is categorize and basically, if you understand what it was, we understood that some of these people were Havana syndrome, passed them off to somebody else who was dealing with it, and then, but still, what remained on the table was interesting because actually, suddenly we had injury cases where, as it turns out, there was a concentration of reports within these individuals of anomalous encounters. Most of the other cases that had heard things, buzzings in their heads and things like that, which, we didn't associate with any kind of electronic attack, which is what we now think the Havana syndrome is, by some third party. So there's very little that we could do about the injury cases except try to treat their symptoms as much as possible. But part of it was, to at least give the assurance to these individuals that what they were seeing was real, to help them get the kinds of medical benefits that they deserved. But then part of the analysis as we were looking at things, it became obvious when we had, a number of these scans up on the presentation that there was a pattern that we started to see in some of what we thought was at first injury, that an area of the brain called putamen it looked like damage, and we thought, oh, that's really interesting. There's focused damage in one area of the brain. Well, there's ways you can look at different MRIs with different settings, if you will, that showed, in fact, that it wasn't damage; it was live tissue, and it manifested as a whiter area, not because it was dead or damaged, but because it had a higher concentration of neural connections at the head of the caudate and the putamen. And so I went to almost immediately some friends of mine here at Stanford and asked them, well, what is it who are in the neuro field? Well, what is it the basal ganglia caudate putamen do? And they said, oh, it's involved only in motor control. And this was someone who had gone to Yale and undergrad and Harvard for med school, but I guess really wasn't up on some of the current literature, because it started to be, in the literature, it started to become understood that, well, if it's about motor control, you need a feedback mechanism to know where your arm is to be able to put it where you want it to be. I can close my eyes and move my hand, and I have a sense where it is because there's feedback systems within here that help me locate myself in 3D space, which means that this area of the brain was listening to a lot more. It was actually listening to things, not just outputting things. And so there became a pattern of that, okay, all these individuals have this. What's special about these individuals? So you had pilots, you had physicists, you had ground personnel. Well, the one thing you have is that they're all high functioning. And it was Kit who basically put this together. He used the word savant, but I think high functioning is a better, easier descriptor that you don't have to spend too much time defending what a savant is. And because a lot of people have a certain picture in their mind of what a savant is. And then, okay, well, what is it about these individuals why would they have this, and what is the purpose of it? And it was purely, I think, by chance that Kit happened to have the brain scans of a couple of people who were known or claimed, I'll use the word claim, high functioning remote viewers. And so I just remember the meeting that we were at. It was me, Jacques, and Kit that were kind of going around on this, and we said, well, what is it about remote viewing that is high functioning? Well, it's a form of intuition in a way, because actually what we were looking for, to be honest, is a word that said kind of what it is that remote viewing was without calling it remote viewing. And the word is intuition. And then we realized, oh, wow, this area of the brain might be actually where intuition happens. And so it only took a little bit of Google searches, thank God for Google, to realize that actually there was already mainstream research out there saying that, well, not only was this area of the brain involved in intuition, it was downstream of executive function, was now called by some the brain within the brain. The executive function gives this area of the brain its desired goals somehow, passes them on. This area of the brain collects all the data in your sensory network of where you are, et cetera, in 3D space, sound, hearing, memory, emotions, and then sets goals and sub-goals of what it is that you should do in any given situation. And so then you're asking, well, how does that relate to remote viewing? Well, and then if you talk and read about remote viewing, and I did a remote viewing once with Ed May. It was remarkable what happened, and I won't go into the details of it, but it was clear that there are, if you read about all of this stuff, there are visual signals that happen or are seen by some people. And so it's like, okay, I was interested in, all right, this is fine. There's lots of books written about the woo of it, but like Ed May, I was interested in the science of it. I say, okay, so if there's neurons that are collecting this information, is there an area of the brain that does this? Well, no one's ever seen anything like this, and certainly there's been no evidence, of brain damage that would say suddenly people lose a certain ability that might be related to remote viewing. But if you were to think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, how would you overlay and get anomalous information that is not in our normal expectation of 3D, of electromagnetic spectrum into the brain? Well, maybe you would overlay it somehow, I don't know how, somehow onto the already in place visual or auditory networks, and that would be the way in which information somehow got transferred. Somehow it has to be then turned into a picture. But, I mean, that's as big a problem as a dream, right?
I understand that very well.
Dreams get put onto your internal viewer, right? You actually have two visions. You have your vision that we're using right now to see each other, but we can each close our eyes and imagine the other person or any other object in our mind's eye.
Right.
Whoa, that's crazy. So there is a part of our brains that is different with UFO contactees. Now, what I'm not clear about, and I don't know if Dr. Garry Nolan is clear on this either, in any interview that I've ever seen him address this topic, he hasn't really answered this question that I've seen. Do the brains change when people come into contact with the UFOs, or is it people that have this already changed brain or this structure in their brain? Are those the people that do have contact with UFOs? I think that is a kind of a critical question that we need to address and to have answered. But yeah, so this part of the brain and these people apparently is connected to possibly intuition, possibly remote viewing. And if it's connected to remote viewing, it's probably connected to other psychic abilities as well. And this is something that we see over and over again in alien contactee cases. People are, after they have been abducted, after they start being abducted, they often start to develop abilities, psychic abilities, intuition, remote viewing, hands-on healing, knowing things that are going to happen, being able to read minds, etc. It seems like this changed structure of the brain may be at least partly responsible for that. Now, it's really interesting to consider how the physical aligns with the metaphysical. You know, your pineal gland is connected to your third eye. Now that sounds woo-woo to a lot of people, but it is a real thing. I know people whose third eye is open and they can see stuff the rest of us can't. And they're always right. So this stuff is fascinating because the spiritual and the metaphysical and the consciousness stuff is very much connected with this plane of existence as well. Our souls are connected to our bodies. They are in our bodies. And so this part of the brain could be the one physical imprint of the spiritual or the metaphysical, in the same way that the pineal gland is connected to the third eye. But that's just me. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Please hit like. That would be awesome. That would make my day if you would hit the big thumbs up button. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you do, the bell next to it to be notified of future videos. That would be awesome, trying to grow my channel. There's social media links below as well. So if you wanted to follow me on social media, that would kick butt. And of course, there is a PayPal link below if you wanted to support the channel. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. This is Cosmic Road.